Right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started, isn't it? I mean, I know these have been fine players who have played so much of domestic cricket, who have played so much of test cricket, but I guess I need to do this in a bit of a T20 format, to be honest. Right? Let me get across to Mr. Subramania. Thank you so much, sir, first up, for taking your time out and being a part of this wonderful occasion. It obviously shows how much Karnataka cricket means to you. Take us through your times and the kind of performance, because I mean yesterday I saw you interacting with some of your colleagues at that point in time. The sense that I got was, I remember Kiribai came up to you and said, skipper. Take us through the art of captaincy. You almost seemed to galvanize that particular part of the world when you took over.
One of the best things I had was the top players. Prasanna, Chandra, Vishy, Brijesh Patel, and so the game was easy in a way. We were a young side at the time. The team suddenly started to have the spirit. We started winning and winning, got a lot of support from the crowds, and we built upon that success and moved on. And you can see the result that these players have shown in the international arena.
That's one of the facets of captaincy, isn't it? Straight away talk about your team, not necessarily about how you necessarily galvanize the side, sort of.
I think it's about team only, because I've always believed a captain is as good as a team, and I totally agree with Mr. Subramaniam's thoughts that that half the job is done for a captain when you have good players around you.
When it comes to selection, then the first thing which I would look at would be to analyze the player, to have that vision. Whether selection is not about looking at the scorebook. You know, you don't need then so-called selectors to come and pick the squad. You can pick any person and pick the 4 highest run scorers and make them back 3, 4, 5, 6, and the job is done. It's about having vision. It's about knowing whether, in spite of failures, whether the player would be able to withstand the kind of pressure and would be able to execute all the talent what he's got at an international level. Because I feel there have been in the last many years that I've been part of Indian cricket, I have seen players who are exceptionally good at domestic level, but they have somehow not made to the next level. So I think that is really important. But talking about the basics are more important in test cricket. To a certain extent, one-day cricket, T20 it really doesn't matter. You just have to go and swing your bat, and you know, it's the only format maybe in 3 or 4 deliveries you can actually become a hero.
Yeah, I mean, gems really coming through from Sachin Tendulkar about the T20 format. I should get to Rahul on this, because we saw a few strokes coming through from you. We saw a few strokes coming through from you in T20 format of the game, which we didn't probably see for about 20 years. Is that what Sachin was talking about, swinging the bat around?
Yeah, I mean, to survive with the amount of T20 cricket being played, you had to learn to play a few shots. You couldn't just block it like I did in Test cricket. But yeah, I think it was a question of adapting. I think the good players learn how to adapt. I mean, if you look at Sachin and Sourav and a lot of the top T20 players, even if you look at the last IPL and say a Chris Gale or a Michael Hussey or an A.B. de Villiers, the guys who sort of dominated even the IPL or the T20 format, are all really good test players. So you need to have that basics, and you need to have that foundation from which you can build on. It's very rare to go the other way around and see a really good T20 player actually succeed at test cricket. So I think the other way works a lot better. So you need to have that foundation, and obviously in T20 and one-day cricket you need to innovate, need to play a few more shots.
Yeah, there's something interesting that I came across when I was reading through what Graham Gooch was talking about very recently. So I thought I'll talk to you about that. It's a wonderful platform to speak to you about. The essential difference, Rahul, about batting, the art of batting, and run making. Where do they coincide? What are they essentially? What are they talking about? And how do you go about making runs? Are they two separate entities, batting and making runs?
Yeah, I think Sachin touched on that point a little bit. I mean, when he said that, I think making runs is not only about technique and not only about your skill as a player, but then it comes down to your temperament, your mental ability. All these things get tested when you are in the middle and when you have to score runs under pressure or in difficult situations. And that's what he means by scoring runs, an ability to score runs. You can show all the talent you want, you can have the best technique you want, you can have all the ability you want in the nets.
How do you develop that? Is there a way that you can develop, or you look at yourself and say, this works best for me and therefore I go this way?
Look, I can only speak for myself. I think it's an experience thing. It's a lot about experience. At least for me personally, it was experience. You learn along the way. Like, Vishy said, he watched his seniors. I mean, when you're sitting in a dressing room, with the likes of a Tendulkar or a Lakshman and a Ganguly and the likes of people like that, you're just observing the way they approach different situations, the way they play, how they bat, what are the kind of shots they're playing in, at that point of time, how are they reacting, how are they building innings, how are they constructing innings. And I think that's, for me, it was an experiential thing. It was really learning as I went along, and then hopefully I got better at it.
Mr. Subramanian, you've enjoyed watching T20 cricket? You've enjoyed watching T20 cricket?
I do. It has its good points, and skill is needed. It's not simply going and throwing a bat around, and even the bowling, fielding, everything takes a lot of skill. And the fielding side of the equation has improved tremendously with the T20 catching. You see some remarkable catches taken on the field. So there's skill involved. It's not simply a bash game.
Right, Sourav, I mean, obviously we see interesting shots being played when it comes to T20. Yes, it adds to the excitement. But does it impact the way players approach longer versions of the game? Do you see players tempted to play the reverse sweeps or whatever shots that seem more appealing in a T20 format, thereby hindering their progress? Coming back to what Rahul was talking about, therefore the temperament.
Yeah, you see a lot of shots being played in Test cricket, and also you see a lot of results happening in Test cricket. Over the period as time went on, results have started happening more in the 5-day format. We see one-day cricket now. From the time when we started and when we finished, teams would get 300, 350 and even 400. So it has brought innovations to the game, there's no doubt about it. But I think when you come and play Test cricket, obviously you'll have to adjust. Everybody has his own way of scoring runs. No two player will be different. Similar, no two players' techniques will be different. So it's just about finding your own way. As Sachin said, the basic is important. It's about going back and going forward and then finding your way of scoring runs, because as I said, no two players can be similar.
Sachin, I mean, obviously, to your left is a successful broadcaster at this point in time. Next to him is somebody who's playing T20 cricket and a very fine broadcaster. We love you seeing on the field the passion as good as it was on day one, and you're still the first to board the bus, you're still the first to get into practice. What keeps you going, really?
Well, I think I've been passionate about this game since the time I held a cricket bat at the age of 5. And, this dream of playing for India was so, the desire was so strong.
The reason why I asked you this question is because there's been so much that has changed. I mean, obviously the dressing room, what is happening around cricket, different formats of the game, technology, sports science. How important is it, obviously, to adapt? How do you go about adapting to different people, to different technologies, to different sciences that seem to be coming in? The regimens are supposedly changing.
I remember my first tour of Pakistan was in 1989, and in our warm-up session was, you can call it not optional, but at the same time not that organized what it is nowadays. We wore all different clothes. A few of the senior players had some fantastic clothing, and we were beginners, and from Ranji Trophy to graduating to international cricket had that different set of clothes. So right from the clothing, and in 2002, 2003, there was an introduction of a laptop in the dressing room, and the first reaction was, oh, what is this doing in the dressing room? How is laptop going to teach you how to play? But then over a period of time, you figured out that there are so many things which you normally don't remember, and once you have everything stored in that laptop, it's just a matter of seconds where you can have direct access to that within seconds, and then you can figure out, you can actually plan your innings, you can plan how you're going to bat against the opposition and refresh your memory. Changes have taken place. I mean, I think, if I'm not mistaken, cricket is probably the only format where, cricket is the only sport where there are 3 different formats. A proper 5-day long, then 1 day, and then T20. So it is only getting more and more exciting for not only for the players but also for the spectators. And along with these different formats, you learn more about the game. There is creativity, there is, that's what Sourav and Rahul also said. There are more results nowadays in Test cricket because batters are willing to take more chances. Sometimes it opens the avenues to score runs at a brisk pace, and sometimes you end up losing wickets. So you constantly continue to be a student of this sport.
Yeah, Rahul, is it also about, obviously Sachin talks so much about the changes that does happen and that is happening. Is it also about embracing changes in accordance to what you think is workable for you? How do you go about doing that?
Look, I think all of us have our own unique set of skills. And I think one of the important things is not to try and copy other people. I think you've got some unique set of strengths and you've got to build on those strengths. Sure, you've got to keep improving all the time. You've got to keep getting better. You've got to keep understanding what you're good at. But I think you've got to remain, sort of have your own individuality and what really works for you. And I was never going to succeed if I was going to try to bat like Viru. And Viru was never going to succeed if he tried to bat like me. So, I mean, yeah, sure, you want to make changes, you want to adapt, and you want to make it work. But in the end, like you said earlier, it all comes down to run making and wicket taking. I mean, the game is based on, it's all about the scorebook. So it doesn't matter how you do it. As long as you can score the runs, take the wickets, you're going to get yourself selected.
One final question before we let these gentlemen go and have a good time out there. Sourav, broadcasting, you don't hate us yet?
It's much easier than playing cricket, boss. It's much easier. And I go to sleep without any tension. If the alarm rings, rings. If it doesn't ring, doesn't ring. And I'm always scampering to be there at 8 o'clock on time. So it's much easier than playing cricket.
Loved your stint behind the microphone so far? Loved your stint behind the microphone as a commentator so far?
Yes, like Sourav said, it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier in that commentary box to say, yeah, you should have shouldn't have chased that when I was at the off stump. You sort of remind yourself, that I was doing the same thing 6 months ago. So.
Has Sachin come and spoken to you after the day's commentary saying, guys, come on, or something like that? Because I mean, you guys have played so much.
The advantage with Sachin is that he's not listening to it. So you can say anything about him actually because he doesn't know.
Right, that's the safety belt under which they are operating. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being a part of this wonderful occasion. Thank you so much, Mr. Subramania. Thank you so much, Mr. Vishwanath. Thanks so much, Rahul. Thanks so much. Photo op. Thanks so much, Sourav, and Sachin as well. Thank you so much. Big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for one of the finest that you will ever see.